This episode of the production channel is sponsored by CLEMCO. Visit CLEMCO.net for all of your freelance, independent contractor, entrepreneur, and small business needs.
Hi, my name is Clem Harrod, and I'm the founder and chief projection officer of CLEMCO. As a networking and educational resource for independent contractors, freelancers, and small business owners, our mission is to help you project the best image possible for your life and business. Today, we're going to talk about something I know very well, my experience as a black male in the live event production industry. But I don't want to just leave it with my experience. I'm going to have some colleagues join me, and they're going to share their perspectives as well. Now, this is not a conversation focused on how things are or were, but rather an opportunity for us to understand how we can make our world more just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive for the future. Enjoy Projection 101. Justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, or JEDI, have been a hot topic as we've been navigating this racial pandemic, and now as we celebrate the acceptance of Juneteenth as a national and federal holiday. With that, more and more Black, Indigenous people of color, or BIPOC, have been speaking up and making sure that they are seen and their voices are heard. Today, we are a panel of 4 Black men from different sectors of the industry willing to share our stories and open up about our journey as we have been navigating our own career. First, we have Ricardo Hicks, founder and CEO of Tech Factory, which supports both in-person and virtual events for many companies around the country. How's it going, Ricardo?
Doing great. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Next, we have John Brewer, owner and operator of Red Emerald Digital. And John, what I really respect about him is what he's done during this industry shutdown is pivot to a virtual space and build a vMix studio outside of his home to aid clients as they continue to host meetings and events for their end clients. What's up, John?
Hey, how's it going, Clem? Good to see you, man.
Finally, Gabe Davis, a former Full Sail student, graduate, and Emmy Award-winning camera operator who has taken his career and really owned it and taken charge of it. What I appreciate most about Gabe is he's not afraid to invest in himself or gear to propel his career as an independent contractor. How's it going, Gabe?
Hey, Clem. I'm glad to be here.
So all of these men, I have personal relationships with them. We've spent a lot of time together just talking, fellowshipping, and figuring out how to navigate our lives, navigate our family situation, our relationships, our financial situation, not only in this industry, but as we've been navigating through this time of industry shutdown. It's been a challenge, but we've endured and we're continuing to move forward. Ricardo, I want to start with you as a senior person on this call. And this is a question here. This is a tough question. When did you first realize that you were a Black man in this industry?
Wow, that's a great question. And I'd have to say that it came pretty, I won't say midway, but probably in the first third of where I'm in my career at this point. I was working for a 4-star, 4-diamond hotel as the audiovisual director. And I'd been serving there for about 4 years, and then they decided to pivot and to move to an in-house operation where they hired a technician themselves instead of having the contract through an AV company, PSAV. So they ended up not renewing the contract. And I had a gentleman that worked for me that happened to be white that he had been there for years before I got there. Matter of fact, he was good enough where he could have run the property without me. Like he could have been promoted to the director that 4 years before I got there. But he worked under me as my assistant. And then he was actually interviewing for the position. And when I declined to interview to work in-house for the hotel, the first question that he was asked or the first thing that was proposed to him, it says, let's have a conversation about Ricardo. And he was blown away. He was so blown away by it that he called me. He didn't know what to do with that. He said, this guy's the best manager I've ever had. We had the highest customer service scores in the hotel. The whole 4 years I was there, that was one thing that I paid attention to. I never wanted any department to have a higher customer service rating. I served with excellence, which that's the only thing I know to do. If we made mistakes, we owned up to them. And that was my first experience. Haven't had a whole lot of those, but it was a very piercing experience for me at that moment.
Yeah. I can imagine. It's when it hits you, right? When you know, and it's just like it just doesn't feel right. John, I know you come from the Pittsburgh market, and now you're in the affectionately known as the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. What was your experience, or when was that moment that was like, wow, I'm Black in this industry?
Sure, Clem. Yeah, the first time I really realized that was I was also working for PSAV at the time, and I had received a promotion to manage a small property, a suburban property, and there was a lot of tension there. When I initially moved to the property, there was a lot of tension around the fact that they liked the previous director. And they did not particularly care for the decision to have me move to that property. And, I overheard some things that indicated to me that, basically they didn't want any Black people, there. They didn't really appreciate having a Black person promoted into that position. And it was, really kind of typical of a lot of the feelings that you would get. It would just happen to be one of the times where there was an actual confirmation, there was an actual overheard conversation that indicated the truth of what was happening.
And that confirmation just came from just verbal. It wasn't in writing, right? It was just, or was it something said specifically to you? Or go a little deeper into that for me, if you will.
Sitting in the cafeteria, and I overheard basically a conversation that was being had about me, basically between a couple of the managers, and what was basically said was, I can't believe that they replaced X person with that guy,
And you being that guy, you knew exactly.
Me being that guy, right? And it was like at that time they had no frame of reference to have any challenges with me, any particular issues with me. I was brand new to the property, and it was an uncomfortable situation. I ended up leaving that property shortly after and moving back into a different property as a operations manager, just because there was constant tension, there was constant hostility towards me from the management of that particular property.
Yeah, Ricardo, I see you nodding, man. I see clearly there's something that's resonating
Absolutely.
with you. I want to get back to that, but I don't want to leave Gabe out. Gabe, as a student coming up at Full Sail, I mean, that's Full Sail in itself we know is a very expensive school. So it's like, what was your experience? When did you realize?
For me, I realized early on. When I was younger, I wanted to be an actor, and Robert Williams and Jim Carrey were two. I loved comedy at the time. Robin Williams and Jim Carrey were two of my favorites, as well as Martin and Will Smith. And I used to do my impressions and whatnot. And when I would sit in front of the TV, I noticed there weren't many people that looked like me. And even being heavily influenced with entertainment, the arts, drawing, painting, writing, and whatnot, even the people behind the scenes, the writers, the authors, they weren't, most of them, or at least what I was exposed to, I didn't see many people who looked like me that were creating or in front of the camera. So I knew ahead of the time. And as I started to grow up and go through school and figure out what I wanted to do, I eventually settled on filmmaking. Like, it was bad. I just knew. I was like, all I want to do is watch TV and movies and write and draw. So I came upon Full Sail, and like, that's what they wanted, and that's what they accepted. But I noticed none of the other students looked like me. And at least in the film program, people always used to ask me when I was there, like, oh, are you in the recording arts? You like filming that, like, I want to rap or make beats or something like that. And it was like, no, I'm in the film program. So I knew going into the industry that this is what my classmates look like, you know, the environment. And when we would do reports, and once you go from watching, everyone's an expert on films because we all watch movies and TV, but once you go on a technical level and whatnot, and you start to see who these people are, I would look into, like, oh, who's the editor? Who's the composer? And most of the people that worked on the films were white, and it depended. I was into a lot of Japanese and Korean films and whatnot, and there are independent co-productions throughout different countries and whatnot. But I knew it was going to be an upward hill battle, and I knew that I would probably be that token on a lot of sets, which when I graduated, that's how it was. Every now and then there might be a Hispanic person or an Asian person, but I find myself for almost 8 to 9 years now generally being the only colored one. And that's not directly anyone's fault. And whenever I have the opportunity to hire someone or bring somebody in the industry, I tend to bring in a woman or a person of color if I can't find someone who can get the job done immediately. But as far as knowing when I was Black in the industry, I knew before I even dived in that it might be a little bit harder for me. I would have to work a bit harder. I would have to make sure I was on par with everybody, and I just couldn't be the worst in the room. I just needed to make myself stand out, and hopefully I'd have an opportunity.
Yeah. It's, oh man. So you said two things that really stood out to me. One was tokenism, right? Because that's the thing. And then also the not being the worst, and some of that mindset that we have been taught is we have to be the best in order to be considered good enough or average. We have to excel. I mean, I remember my first experience, or one of my first experiences, was working a scorebug operator game for like a high school championship football in Orlando, and directors come and go all the time, but when you're that local crew, you're the local, camera operators, you're the local utilities, the scorebug operators, and I happened to be a scorebug operator on that particular game. And I made a mistake. I'm not, obviously I don't remember what it was. It was so long ago in my career, but I got reprimanded on comms, like on headset in front of everybody. And so during that era, there was that transition from the yelling, screaming director to trying to be more calm and communicate better. And I remember hearing all the stories about the yelling and screaming directors. And I had a few experiences with some of those, but in that moment, that reprimanding moment, I was referred to as boy, and that was like just an instant trigger as a Black man, and just knowing that that's not what you say, racial slurs and all of that, and just hearing boy, I was like, excuse me? Like, I remember just being caught, taken aback by that, and knowing that I was the only Black male on that crew, in that truck, and in an industry where there are so few, in a market that there are so few of us. It hurt me, and it made me feel some type of way about that. But I knew that I had to carry myself. One, I had to make sure that he knew that wasn't acceptable, but then I also had to carry myself and represent myself in a way that did not seem obnoxious and out of control for everyone else on the crew. And I guess that gets back to making sure or being in that mindset of we have to be better than everyone else. Yeah, can someone speak on that? Or are you familiar with that mindset, or is that something that Gabe got his hand raised?
Only because that exact same story and situation happened. And I think what did it for me was, it's not his fault either, but he had a Southern accent. So when he said it, it's like, boy, like it struck a chord. Like, and I'm sure that everybody calls it's a word, but it's just so connected to the N word and derogatory. It was how, I mean, if a slave wasn't called the N word, they were called boy. That, I mean, there was, and maybe their name. So from that era, those two words, the N word and boy, coming from, and especially the intentions and how you say it, like you were reprimanded. And I remember being on those comms and hearing people like just going at it, and I'm like, please let this never happen to me. But I was someone I wasn't called out in front of everyone, but in a negative manner, someone called me boy. And I don't believe this person is racist. I don't think that they have any feelings or any discrimination or prejudice. But in that moment, like it struck a chord in me, and it was like you said, you have to be better, and you have to go about correcting and educating in a way that doesn't disrupt the environment and is still able to educate. But in that moment, I was like, I told him, I was like, Ryan, don't call me boy. And he smiled, he laughed, because he didn't get it. Like he didn't even know.
I see you nodding, Ricardo. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to
Because you and I have
back
had
up
some
on.
serious conversations.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want to go back to what you were asking about the excellence. Like, so growing up, my grandfather was a business owner, my dad was a business owner, and they often worked for brick mason contractor, so own their own business, but they often work for white men that was, you know, in the that were the general contractors. And so I would say that excellence was always something I knew that I had to take wherever I was going to go. So I had that blue collar mindset and that excellence, and just knowing that you have to be the best of the best. And my dad, my grandfather, they were that. But I also knew, and from my father's experience, when he decided that he was thinking about becoming a general contractor, the word started spreading that Hicks was thinking about being a general contractor. And he needed one signature. It was just from an electrician. And he called a guy that he didn't know that well, but he was the one that he got signatures from everybody else. But that guy leaked it to everyone else, and it froze him from taking that next step to be a general contractor. He had all the skills, built his own house, everything. That thing pierced me and it stuck with me, right? So once I realized that I wanted to get into this field, I said, okay, I'm gonna have to be a little bit more cunning about how I go about this. Like, I know I have the skills. I felt like I had to hide the fact that I had a certain level of intellect. Like, I had to befriend, you know, like, be the best freelancer I can be the best technician I could be, but also befriend all of those, like, which I always treated everybody the same anyway. That's what I did. But I just felt like I had to go above and beyond when it came to my white counterparts, that I knew that, you know, I was thinking about things that they weren't even thinking about. Like, I knew that I was light years ahead in a lot of them. And I knew that that could offend some people and could suppress the opportunities to progress, you know, in the field. You know, so I was always careful. So I took the opposite approach. So everybody was like, oh man, everybody. But then it would become negative then, because I remember guys saying, they weren't racist at all, but I remember this guy saying, oh, everybody loves Ricardo. And it was said underhandedly, like, I don't understand why everybody likes you so much. So it's still, you know, even though I was trying that strategy, it still kind of kicked me sometimes, because it's like, well, I don't want you to feel that kind of way. I'm just trying to do the best that I can. So
Yeah, I definitely want to second that, what you're saying, Ricardo. You know, the whole idea of, you know, hiding, playing small is basically what I call it, right?
Exactly.
Playing small, you know, hiding what you know, not talking about things that are even really of interest to you. Because, you know, particularly when I was working in Pennsylvania, it's like the politics, I knew that the guys that I was working with had different politics than I did. So I would never really talk about anything about myself, not my kids, not my family life, not my spiritual life, none of that, because I didn't feel that there would be a receptivity to anything that was different from, you know, something that they might think or feel. And like you said, you would feel almost like, if I open up and I start to become more personable with these people, then, you know, I might end up missing out on job opportunities. And something that I've realized through working with Clem is, you know, a lot of times crewing comes down to who people like. And if you don't really engage on the job set because you're kind of like hesitant to talk too much about, you know, things that people may or may not agree with, you know, you may miss out on some job opportunities even because you're not perceived as being a part of the crew or fitting in or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
You know, so that's kind of one of the hidden consequences of, you know, as I would say, playing small.
Just think about my upbringing, growing up in Bowie, Maryland, and moving to Miami, and constantly in Bowie, we were in the suburbs. Moving to Miami, we weren't, and just not fitting in so many different places, not fitting in as the only black family in Bowie, Maryland, and remembering when the other black family moved in across the street, moving down to Miami, where it's definitely more cultural and more black people, but because I was from Maryland and you know, spoke white, I didn't fit in with the people there. But one of the things my mom taught me is God made me a man of stature, as tall as I am, 6'7", not interested in playing basketball, not even doing that, but he made me that tall for a reason. So like when you all talk about playing small, I didn't have an option to play small because I felt like everybody saw me and everybody noticed me. There was nowhere for me to hide. And so therefore is also what you were talking about, Ricardo. It's like kind of being in that mindset of, you know, everybody loves Clem, everybody loves Ricardo, right? Everybody loves Clem. So I just had to be me, had to be authentic, but at the same time, I did feel like I was constantly trying to be liked or accepted in these different pockets because of I wasn't accepted here, I wasn't accepted here. So it's constantly trying to find my way of fitting in. But at the same time, in trying to find ways to fit in, I'm also I felt like and continue to feel like I'm learning more about myself and learning more about what it is that I enjoy, what I like and what I don't like, because I'm taking on opportunities to learn more about different people who are and aren't like me. And through that navigation, I've gotten to know a lot of people and gotten to a lot of opportunities and experiences that have come my way, and so many to the point that I can't even do them all. So then it's helping to grow the business by providing opportunities for other people as well. And so, I guess as a business owner, Ricardo, what has, where can you relate to any of that or disagree with some of that?
I wholeheartedly agree with that point. Like, definitely, feeling like you're trying to fit in, but for me as well, I was being sincere and just, my relatability and trying to get to know different people and so on and so forth, because I'm already thinking about how can I get more people that look like me in this field and get this opportunity. Like, I came from the country. I told you I'm a third generation brick mason. My grandfather didn't go to college. My dad didn't go to college. So I'm thinking, man, this is a great blend between I guess you would say blue collar and white collar work, which is audiovisual. It's a little bit of both, as I like to say, because the customer service element, it can be very white collar, and then you get into the very technical aspects of A1, V1, L1, so on and so forth. It can get very technical and get white glove in a certain respect, but that definitely has both elements to it. So I'm looking like, man, how can I expose people to look like me to this opportunity where all you have to do is really, work hard and then find out where you link. You have audio, video, lighting. You can probably fit into one of those three, just about anybody, So I'm like trying to inspire people, and I've done that. Like, I didn't start a labor company like Clem did, but before I even started my own AV company, I put 10 or 11 freelancers into this business full time, from washing cars, flipping burgers or whatever. It's like, man, he has a good smile, attention to detail, works hard. Hey, you want to try AV? then like, give them the run around. Okay, this is how you need to move. This is how you need to navigate. You need to keep your mouth closed. In this business, guys, there's a lot of machismo, especially with audio guys. I can pick on audio guys because I'm an audio guy. It's like trying to figure out what shoot out terms on. Keep your mouth closed. Don't have to tell them everything. If you don't know anything, just treat them like they're the smartest person in the world, whoever it is, black, white, whatever. Keep your nose down, work hard, and then after a while, you figure out which one of these you lean towards. There's opportunity here, and there's a whole world here. So how can I help? So I've brought white people into the business as well, several of them. But being very intentional about extending those opportunities to people that look like me, it's been just my mission. Yeah. To make sure that there's opportunity. It affects everything. It affects black men in the home, being able to provide, 2-parent households, so on and so forth. I've seen guys that have gotten married, that are in this field, so just forward thinking like yourself about how I can position myself. And if I have to sacrifice someone thinking that I'm not as smart as they are, I have to sacrifice that because I'm trying to win 10 years from now, not trying to win right now.
John and Gabe, I know you both have taken time to invest in gear. Like, I'm not a gear person. I'm a people person. Like, I invest in people all day long, and I'm sure you all, everybody would understand that and recognize that. But you all have taken time to invest in gear and knowing how to use that moments and those understandings to move forward. Do you see that as something that has been valuable for you, and do you see a lot of other black men doing the same? Just speak on that for me.
Yes, it's definitely benefited me. I mean, you and I have talked about this many times. One of my short-term goals is really being able to establish working from home. That's kind of something that I really want to do. It's being able to establish location independence is very important to me. But beyond that, yeah, I see it also kind of, to Ricardo's point, as an opportunity to maybe bring in some other people into the industry, provide some opportunities and things of that nature. Because I think, yeah, absolutely, we all, as black men in this industry that are thriving and doing well, we have a responsibility to, to pull others along as well who may not even know about this opportunity. I think that's really the biggest thing, is people don't know about the AV industry, so just being able to pull people in is a powerful tool.
Yeah. What about you, Gabe?
As far as what you were saying earlier about the equipment and the gear and whatnot,
because you've got some pretty sleek stuff, man. Like, I've brought you on some of the job sites, since COVID, and we're creating content now. We're not doing live events as we were, but having opportunities to create video content for a company that we work with. Beautiful work. You've got your jib, you got your sliders, steady cam. You're always talking about your new cameras and riding around dirty with the vehicles, everything packed in, renting a van if needed to get more stuff going. Like, you grind.
For some reason, my look, no one looks at me and thinks like, he's a filmmaker. He's a this. I used to be insecure about wearing hats too, because and to just go off on a side story, I remember once I was working a job, and I don't remember what I did, but I got like a compliment in front of the crew and whatnot, and my DP was like, "Yeah, my gangster AC, this, that, and the other," and I'm like, "What makes me gangster? Like, I have a Yankees hat. Like, this just makes me a baseball fan. Like, if anybody else was wearing this hat, you wouldn't have made that statement." But appearances are a very, very big thing in our industry. And obviously we all know the saying, you're as good as your last job. And I was even told when I had my first staff job that the owner of the company didn't like how I dressed. He didn't like what I wore. And I was trying to figure out a balance, because like Ricardo was saying earlier, sometimes you just had to be a little bit smarter. You had to portray a little bit more intelligence. And I had some trouble with that, because that's the attitude and the perspective I had when I started Full Sail. So I was always commenting. I was reading books. Like, if we were going to take a lighting class, then I was reading lighting books the month before that, so I could just layer the information and have it all ready. I'd raise my hand. Like I was pretty much goody two shoes, and it didn't really
You were
work
the
in
nerd.
my. Yeah, I mean, and I was passionate about something in school for the first time in my life, so it was new to me too.
Yeah.
But it didn't work in my favor how I thought it would. So it was kind of a balance. Like, do I stay quiet and stay over here in this corner, or do I show up and participate as much as I can? And I just learned like that was something that just it depended on the environment that you were in. So whenever I wear like a chest harness and it has my tools and a bunch of other things inside of it, and I have like a nice cart. And when people see the equipment, they're like, okay, he invested in himself. He must know how to use it. He's serious about what he does. And unfortunately, I feel like if I wasn't white and I didn't look the way I did, then if I just said, hey, my name is Gabe, I'm a camera operator, it would look different if I said it as myself, because I don't fit the stereotype. So the gear was, because I work as an assistant camera operator and operator as well. I need to know how everything works, and if something goes down, I need to know how to fix it. And just being able to have things in my possession at home helped me a lot. It also helped me look better, like, because people assume like if you can take care of your own things and whatnot, then we'll trust you with the rest of this equipment.
What was your upbringing like in your childhood and thinking about getting to that place in which you're following your dream, but also knowing how to, or figuring out how to navigate this independent contractor lifestyle with the inconsistent cash flow, the networking, the business mindset that you have to succeed? Were these things that were taught to you as a child, or were these things that you've just learned and figured out along the way?
As far as the industry diversity, and a lot of the elements that are involved in our industry, unfortunately they weren't taught to me. They weren't handed down. I came from a background of real estate agents, and my mom was a secretary. So being cordial, manners, that was always a big thing that was ingrained. And my mother was Jehovah's Witness and my father was a Muslim. So I already, even though I didn't have they're both African American, but socially and religiously, I was a little diverse. And they would allow me, I would go to church with other friends because I was interested in more than one religion. So I was cordial. I knew how to address people from a young age. Early, I knew that I needed to sometimes, because I'm tall like you. I'm not 6'7", but I'm 6'2", and I'm like I can't hide. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm super tall and usually the only diverse one in the room. So um, I would force I would force people to interact with me. Sometimes I would say hi or make sure that people knew who I was. I'd introduce myself. It feels bad sometimes. I've had this conversation with you actually about sometimes when someone doesn't acknowledge you when you say hello or something like that, and they just look and they just keep going. But now I I try to project my voice a little bit more, and I just try to, if you want to ignore me or you don't want to talk to me or something, then you're going to have to be a little bit more forceful about it. But as far as our industry, school didn't teach us the economic side. They didn't teach us the lifestyle of film. They didn't tell us your checks might not come for 60 days, 30 days. They didn't tell us the set dynamics. It's very clicky. Um, like Ricardo was saying, there tends to be certain clicks and certain views in certain departments, and if you don't engage in it and you don't participate, then you either come off as an introvert or just as someone who's just not wanting to be included. And when there's not a diverse environment of perspectives and mentalities and whatnot, if you're not in the one that's dominant, then you're the sore thumb and you're kind of kicked out. And I think everybody, to answer your question, everybody finds their own balance in each individual situations. And I like that saying that you were saying is treat who you're working with, your client, like they're the smartest person in the room.
Generational knowledge is one of the most powerful things in the world. However, the lack thereof is one of the deadliest. And being able to have that understanding and being able to move forward and pass that knowledge. Like here we are in this studio, right? I'm sitting here in this studio and we have this set, and my son is literally sitting over here, and he's been a part of helping me execute this, you know, and has been a part of my dream and been a part of building my vision. Ricardo, one thing that you mentioned before was how, you know, coming from the generational business mindset with your family, right? And that being able to be passed down to you. Not all Black kids have that opportunity to learn from their relatives or their ancestors or people who have that knowledge and are able to pass it down so that they can take that level, that step up. Because you think about our country and you think about how things are, it's typically a W-2 lifestyle that people are used to living or thinking about for their job, their career. That's what I wanted when I finished my internship with the Orlando Magic back in 2002, thinking that I wanted to work for the Orlando Magic, get my W-2 job, and move forward in my career. But that's not what was available. So I was forced into this 1099 lifestyle, and my mom, my dad, they couldn't teach me how to, you know, set aside for my taxes, set aside for a cushion, set aside for a retirement plan. Like these weren't things that I was prepared for or aware of. So Ricardo, what do you see that can be done to help young people, white or Black, right, learn to manage their lives in this industry?
I'm sitting here reflecting as Gabriel was talking. I've on board, like I said, I brought about 12 to 13 technicians into the business, right? My prep for the 9 that have been Black versus the 3 that have been white have been completely different. Well, not completely different, but you know, I haven't had to say the keep your head down, learn, you know, don't do this, don't do that. You know, the 3 gentlemen that happen to be white, it's like, oh man, just go out to call these people, just go out there and make it happen. You know, you have some questions, ask me. You know, so I'm sitting here as we're having this conversation, just honestly realizing that I know that it's different, and I prep them slightly differently based on that, you know, about the savings and such. You know, just don't get too excited when you see those checks come in. I've had to tell my son that, you know, you see that gross number come in, it's like, man, I made $5,000 this month. No, you didn't. You didn't make $5,000.
Nope. That's why I like my 60-40 rule. 60% of that check is you keep for yourself and your bills and all of that.
Yeah.
Then that other 40% makes up that 25% of your taxes, that 10% for your cushion when the months are slow, and then a minimum of that 5% for your savings and planning for your retirement.
So in other words, I need to tell everybody, listen, y'all need to read Clem's book. You need to get on Clem's list, you know, because you have it all broken down, right? So, but yeah, that's the point. Like, just don't get too excited about those checks coming in. Save it for a rainy day. And yeah, you can make, you know, my son did very well his first couple of years of freelancing. He did very well. But, you know, he got too excited about that gross number that was coming in. Your mileage, keep track of your mileage. Like, you know, every mile that you drive when you're working a job, that's 56 cents a mile, I think is the government rate right now. So it makes a big difference. It could probably, you know, it's $3,000-$4,000.
It definitely adds up. Like I said, there's an app that I use called Mile IQ.
Yeah, I used that app before.
Yeah, yep. Mile IQ for just you driving back and forth. It begins to learn the patterns and the routes, and then you can preset exactly from this location, from my home to the airport, typically work, or from my home to this warehouse space, that's work. So it's constantly keeping track of those things for you, and that's just a little tip, you know. Learning to use Excel. Learning to use Excel is a must for anyone if you're not into QuickBooks just yet, at least having Excel, learning to use those formulas to start calculating things for you. I got a basic budget template. You go to CLEMCO.net, you can find a basic budget template to download and help you out with stuff. John, what's some tips that you have for a young person coming into this industry to help them to take it up to that next level?
Don't be outworked. I mean, that was my, that was definitely my formula for success. That's one way that you can definitely stand out. I mean, even when I first moved to DC, when I first moved to the DC area, I was getting nothing but stagehand calls. I mean, and within a couple of weeks, I was getting show positions because people could just see immediately that, the work ethic was there.
When you moved to, you said you were taking stagehand calls in DC, you were coming from management positions in Pittsburgh,
Yes.
right? You were already
Yes.
at that place. And then you went down to a stagehand position with that knowledge
in
and
a bigger
understanding
market.
and had in a bigger market to work yourself back
Right.
up.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and so exactly. So when I moved to DC, when I moved to the DC area, I decided to go full-time freelance. I had actually been freelancing in Pennsylvania, but there was really not much of a market there, and I knew that I needed to get into a bigger market if I was going to work more consistently. And it worked out well because, I mean, that's where I met you. And then after meeting you, then I started getting a lot more travel shows and things of that nature. But yeah, I definitely had to take a little bit of a title demotion, right, in order to do that. But it worked out.
I did the same
Ricardo.
thing. Similar story. No, I was just going to say a similar story. When I started my career in Atlanta, moved back home to North Carolina, and I found out like my first call to figure out how, like, I want to get on these freelance lists. There were no positions available. The first call I made is like, I can pay you $9 an hour. In Atlanta, I was paying $400 and $500 day rates. So I'm like, it was a shock. I was surprised. So I had to kind of, I didn't take that. I got a couple other calls and, started out $15 an hour. Then I started figuring out where the rates were. So, you can get a $250 day rate, just starting to talk and just outworking people. Like John said, I didn't let anybody outwork me, period. That was it. End of discussion. You may know more than me, but you will not outwork me. And conversations, being relational. I started finding out, man, the guy I'm working beside, he's been in the industry for 20 years. He's making a $250 day rate and overtime after 10 hours. Oh, man, the next time I did my invoice, I'm a $250. I went ahead and told him my day rate changed to $250. I went from $15 to $250. But that goes to the point of being relational, being, having conversations, finding out, what guys are making, what the market is yielding.
So
I'd be interested to find out, Ricardo, how you made the transition to establishing your own clients. I mean, that's really been the biggest challenge for me.
Man, I can sum that up very quickly. We need to have an offline conversation. But what I did, it was probably, once I realized the company I was working for, I won't name them, but the company at the time, it was a PSAV, I realized that their standard of quality and communication, it wasn't there. So I was like, man, I'm at a certain standard. So what I realized was I had to sell clients on me as the brand more than the company I was working for. And that's what happened, because if they were substandard and I'm here, it's like they had a great base in this area, but I know what the company could be. And so my jobs were just like a little different, and my interaction was a little different in my communication. So once I started my company, all the clients, they were like, well, 95%, I left one client behind, but all the clients went with me. Going back to just what we were saying from the beginning, working hard, standing out, not letting anybody outwork you. People see that. You don't have to tell people that you're that. That becomes your reputation, your MO in an area. And it's consistent with, like, if we want our jobs to go well, we better have Clem on our job. We better have John. We better have Gabriel or Ricardo. So if Ricardo is moving somewhere else, we better go where he's going to go, because the standard is here now for this area.
when someone says your name, what is the first thing that pops into their head?
That's it.
Right?
That's how you work every day.
Every day, every damn day. Like Gabe Davis, what should people see and feel and think?
Hard worker, a creative and a hard worker. A creative and a technical, both.
Yes. Yeah, it's good.
Ricardo Hicks, Tech Factory.
Yeah.
What do you want people to think of?
First thing I wanted to think is relationship builder. Secondly is, just a technician. I'm more of an engineer than I am a creative, but I'm a relationship builder and engineer. So I want people to feel comfortable, like, the job is going to get done one way or another.
One way or another, by any means necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
John Brewer, the name John Brewer is mentioned. What do people see, hear, and feel?
Work ethic. is really the first thing that I want people to think. I want them to think integrity, accountability. Those are definitely the words that I want people to think about me. And then I hope that they will also think that I'm creative and that I have something to offer to a team.
You understand what the industry is right now, right? You have insider, outsiders, you have the dominant culture, you have people trying to navigate and find their way, you have people who feel oppressed, unable to excel, unable to achieve, people who are making excuses, people who are intentionally holding other people back so that they can continue to excel. 10 years from now, where do you want to see the industry? And what are you going to do to make a change?
I want to see a more diverse pool. I'm looking for Latinos that I can get into the business as well. I've been actively looking for people that I can recruit into that field. 10 years from now, it's going to definitely look different for North South Carolina, the area that I'm in. And, I'll definitely be influencing that. And I'd like to see that, happen in y'all's areas as well.
10 years from now, I'd like to see remote work being established as the standard, basically. I mean, I feel like that's where things are going anyway. And so I'm really excited about that particular opportunity. And, what I'm prepared to do to move it forward is to jump in it and embrace it and evangelize it. So, I mean, everywhere I go, I'm basically any chance that I have an opportunity to talk about it, I'm talking about it,
I'm not gonna lie, John. I do not want us to go to all remote. That puts so much fear in my heart. I've had to adapt, but I mean, I hope we can still stay on set. For me, going on set and being on different jobs, those are like field trips to me. Like I'm a little kid and like we're here this time, we're here this time. But as far as the industry, 10 years from now, I would like to see a lot more diversity, just an open environment for different ethnicities and also genders. Like there needs to be more females on set. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to work on a couple of all-female sets. And the only reason why I'm able to even get on those shoots is if they can't find someone in their department that's a female, then they'll hire a male. But it's definitely a completely different work environment. It's very free, it's very open, it's very honest. Obviously, you don't speak out of turn or to a director, or you don't break the chain of command, but it's definitely something that should be a thing. I mean, if you think about it, if I say an all black set, that's something that's different. If I say an all female set, that's something different. But if I say an all white set, that's just normal. And it shouldn't be that way. Like I did a report when I was in Full Sail about African-American films, and most people don't know The Matrix was written with Will Smith in mind for the main character and Jada Pinkett as well. And the Matrix is a diverse film, and I wrote about the inceptions of it, and most of the students didn't know. And one student was like, I couldn't imagine Will Smith being Neo. Like he's too hip hop, he's too, and it's like, buddy, the creator imagined it that way. Like, so if you can't see it, just because there's this look, it doesn't mean that there's anything that we can't do that you can do. And that goes for gender as well, and even disability. So I'd like to see an environment that just includes everyone.
Coming in to this space 20 years ago, and now what I understand about a business and being an independent contractor, John, you're talking about location independence. I mean, our industry as a whole, the live event production industry as a whole, provides independence and flexibility for one's life. It's just that knowing how to manage the lifestyle is the biggest thing. So what I want to see is creation of the process to learn how to manage this lifestyle. And I feel like I'm starting that, through career projection, through my book, through the audio book, through my course, all of that, and going out to schools and talking to students, whether it's high schools or whether it's colleges, and talking to television production film students as I'm traveling around the country doing the jobs that we have the opportunity to do. and operating in this virtual space, doing that as well. It's like doubling down on forcing these conversations, these uncomfortable conversations, to create a means for people to be successful in this industry that I so dearly love. And with that, you know, I thank you. I truly thank Gabe, Ricardo, John. I thank you all for being a part of this conversation and opening up and being honest and open and transparent with your feelings, with your experience. And I mean, it's not easy to talk about being a Black man in a predominantly white male industry. Yes, there are other minority groups, but you know, this is the conversation that I knew that I could speak on, and bringing you all in from different perspectives. I appreciate you all being a part of this. So, Projection 101, baby.
Thanks for letting
man.
us
It's been a
share.
pleasure.
Yeah, guys. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.